My name is Lakshay Anand, and as you all know that I have secured All India rank 101 in UPSC Civil Services examination, and my optional was history, in which I attained 291 marks out of 500 marks, which is considered as a very good score in history as an optional. So this video I am making to help those aspirants who are taking history as their optional. As myself, while preparing for this exam, I found that there is a dearth of good material on YouTube or good guidance on YouTube for history optional people. So I have divided this video into broad sections. The first one will be the general discussion, how to approach history as an optional, and the second section will be on the answer writing. The third section, which I think is very less touched by the toppers, is the maps. So I will be discussing about how to prepare the map, which is a 50-mark question in paper 1 of the optional of history. And lastly, I will be answering some of the doubts that I have noted down. So over last few weeks, I have received around 400 and 500 questions from the aspirants on history as an optional. So I will try to answer all these questions in the first 3 parts, but even if something is left, I will just read it and I'll answer it, so that everyone gets what they wanted me to tell them. So I think I'll start now. So I do not come from a history background. I did my graduation in electrical engineering from 2015 to 2019, and then after that I took a gap of 1 year and I did my masters in history from Delhi University Ramjas College from 2020 to 2022, which just got completed in medieval specialization. So my specialization in medieval history. So I think I can give you perspectives of both a science student, an engineering student who is taking history as an optional, vis-a-vis a student of history background who is taking history as an optional. And then I will try to take both of these together to answer your queries and the approaches to history. So the first part that I wanted to talk about as a history as an optional is the general strategy. What should be the strategy? So firstly, we should know what are the pros and cons of taking history. I will not say that there is any con, because I myself is a history buff, so I love the subject so much. But I will say that the challenge with history is that it is very huge. The syllabus is, I think, the biggest syllabus of all the optional subjects that you take. So history definitely has a huge subject, but there are many positivities. For example, since it's a dynamic, not a dynamic subject, it's a static subject, so the questions are very predictable. So you can actually predict what is going to come in the exam by looking and by examining and observing previous 35 to 40 years question papers, and this will help you a lot. I remember when our prelims got postponed because of COVID-19, for entire 3 months I just studied history and history and history, and I made my history notes, which are with me right here. So I made these notes for history. These are entirely made by me. For 3 whole months I used to make these notes. It contains ancient and medieval Indian history. Soon I will be sharing these notes on my Telegram channel, and I am planning to make a blog as well. So I will be sharing these on my blog as well. So what I did was that on 4 walls of my room, I stick a chart paper, and I wrote the previous year questions of all ancient, medieval, modern and world on all 4 walls for last 40 years, and then I examined them. I arranged them in chronological way, that this question is asked from 1857 in modern. So now the Swadeshi movement, and then after that the non-cooperation, the civil disobedience. So chronologically I used to arrange these questions, and then I used to find the answers of this question from multiple sources. I never refer to only one source for writing one answer. The reason being that when you take up one source for history answer writing, you only get perspective of that one particular scholar. For example, if I am taking up Shekhar Bandyopadhyay and I want to write an answer on 1857 revolt, so I will be writing only what Shekhar Bandyopadhyay as a history student or as a historian thought. But history is not about all this, right? So there are some myths about history. History is not about facts. You don't need to mug up all these facts. One person asked on my Telegram channel that do we need to remember all the dates and all the facts that is given in world history, since it's a lot. When we take all the countries, it becomes even bigger. So the simple answer is no. You need not to remember all these facts, because history is not about facts. History about changes and continuity. What has the changes in time and space, and what are the continuities across time and space? What has changed over a period of time, and what has not changed? This is what history is about, and this is what history tells you. Okay. So I will start with the general discussion, and the general discussion starts with the sources that I refer. So I will divide this into 4 sections again: ancient, medieval, modern, and world. So for ancient Indian history, my basic sources were, for all 4 of them, were the basic NCERT, the 3 of them, sorry, not the 4 of them. So the ancient was this R. A. Sharma book that you all know, Ancient History by R. A. Sharma, old NCERT, 11th class. Medieval history was the Satish Chandra book. You can see old NCERT, again medieval, basic. These are my basic sources for history as an optional also, and GS1 also. And this was my third book, History of Modern India. This is by Bipin Chandra. This is also old NCERT. This is the old NCERT book which was used in 12th class earlier. So these are my 3 major sources for all the 3 facades. Now I will talk about world history later on. Let me come and complete the Indian history part first. For ancient Indian history, except for R. A. Sharma, I also use self-study history previous year question module. So self-study history, they have arranged all the previous year questions with the solutions in 4 different PDFs. One is for ancient, one medieval, one modern, and one for world. So I had all these 4 PDFs. I found it on some Telegram channel, and I did not buy it because I could not afford it. So I used to revise all the questions and answers from that until I remembered each and every question from all 4 PDFs. Okay, because I thought, because of my own preparation of that chart paper, I understood one thing, that previous year questions are the heart and soul of history option. So second source was that for my ancient, and my medieval also, and my modern also. Second source was that. Now ancient and medieval, except these 2 sources, I also refer to the other sources like my MA history notes. So my MA history notes, they are not very comprehensively used by me in the optional. However, I have some of the snippets like 4 or 5 pages of ancient, 4 or 5 pages of medieval that I actually used in my actual paper. For different, you can say, periods, time periods. Let's say Baroque period, I used V.K. Jain's Stone Age book a lot, and in ancient, besides V.K. Jain's book, I also used Romila Thapar's book and 6th class NCERT, new NCERT. This was my sources for ancient Indian history. For medieval Indian history, I already told you 2 sources. The third source was Irfan Habib's book on medieval Indian history. I don't have currently that book, otherwise I would have showed it to you. But that's a very good book, I think. And for modern Indian history, I refer to Wajiram and Ravi's yellow book for GS. So there is a yellow book of Wajiram and Ravi which I bought from market, and I used to study that book. I revised that book I think 6-7 times, and it's a very wonderfully written book. I think it's just like Spectrum, although I have never seen Spectrum, but I got these comments from my peers that it is just like Spectrum. So that these were my major sources for completing the Indian history portion. Now coming to the world history. Now world history is very vast. I had a very different and very unique strategy to tackle world history. See, I never used normal law, and I never used any standard book for world history. I had 2 sources for my world history. First one were the self-study history previous year question module. Only and only that. That module is so beautiful. It's around 400 pages module, 300 to 400 pages, and it is so beautifully written. Like they have arranged all the questions with the solutions, and I used to read the questions and the solution. I used to memorize the solution, and by that what happened is that 2 things happened. I got familiarized with the questions and topics which are important, and second, I actually covered those topics also which were not in the PYQ, since I knew some basic topic which was related to that topic. For example, so there was this question on American Civil War in that previous year question module with solution. Since I read that solution, so I could answer a question on Abraham Lincoln also. So once you read that module, it's so beautifully written that even if the question is not coming from that module, there might be 90 to 95% chance that the question that will come will be related to that question which is in the module. That was my primary source. I remember I revised those PYQs at least 5 times until I memorized everything that was in that PDF. My second source was the self-study histories modules of world history, but I did not take them on Word, so I just read them roughly before the prelims. I just roughly read them and I did not make notes except for the enlightenment topic. I did not make notes for world history topics, and it's a coincidence and it's a funny thing that I did not attempt even a single question from enlightenment, although I prepared it very nicely. Anyways, coming to again my sources. So these were my sources in total. I'll be telling my sources for maps in the map section. So after you are done with the sources collection of sources, I would suggest you that you go through the sources and read them. Now these sources are not comprehensive at all. You can add and subtract any of the sources as per your comfortability. These were my sources. They work for me. I hope they work for you as well. Now the second section that I am going to take is on maps, specifically on maps. I know as a history optional student, there are very less sources of maps online, especially good sources. Even those sources which are available, they are not correct. So I'll give you 2-3 examples. So what I did is, I took blank maps like this. It's a 1 rupee map that you can get from a market. I got around 40-50 maps like this, and what I did is I divided this map into grids, different grids. So after dividing it into grids, it looked like this. So I have uploaded these maps also on my Telegram channel. If you want to see these maps, you can see it on there. So I divided the map on grids like this. I wish I could show you it more clearly. So I divided them on the grids, and I made 25-26 maps chronologically. So my first map was of Paleolithic, then Mesolithic, then Neolithic. This is the map of Neolithic, and then IVC, then Megalithic, and then so on. So what I used to do is that after making these maps, I used to revise them every day after my prelims, obviously, every day for 1 hour. Just 1 hour I will revise. So I devoted 7 PM to 8 PM only to maps. And I would every day go to the maps. So first day I did only Paleolithic. Second day I did only the next one Mesolithic. Then I did the Neolithic. So that's how I did. But the thing is that when you are doing Paleolithic, so you are doing only Paleolithic revision. So you memorize, you close your eyes, you imagine a map of India in your eyes, divide it into grids like you divide it on the paper, and you see, okay, Manda is here, IVC site, Kalibungan is here, Damabad is here, Amri is here. So this is how I used to imagine in my mind for 1 hour, and I would revise them like this: Damabad, Amri, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dorbai Sasan, like this. And I will do them in a rotation, like from west to north to east to south. So this made it very clear that this site will be in this direction of India. So this is how I prepared for the maps, but this is not, I'm still not done. So when I am doing Paleolithic, obviously I do Paleolithic, but when I go to the next map, let's say Mesolithic map, when I am doing the Mesolithic map, I would also revise the Paleolithic map that I did yesterday. And next day when I am doing Neolithic map, first I will do Neolithic map, but while I am doing Neolithic map, I will after that I will always revise the Mesolithic plus Paleolithic map. So the maps, they will be revised again and again and again. Every day you add a new map, you also revise the previous maps. which you have revised earlier. So what will happen? Multiple revisions will happen, and the site will be pinpointed in your head. So this was my strategy for remembering the sites. I know it's very hard to remember the sites. There are so many sites in India, especially some archaeological sites, and they are very close to each other. Like in 1 kilometer radius only there are 2-3 sites. I can understand. But this is how I used to do it, and it worked for me. I think it will not work 100% for you, but it will definitely work 80% for you. Okay, and you don't need to mark all sites correct. Even if you are marking 16-17 sites out of 20 sites, that is a exceptional performance according to me. Because UPSC, okay, I'll tell you a little bit more about map, my own experience about maps. So this was my strategy. Now when I am done with doing these maps, NBPW, this ancient cities, now ancient towns, trade routes, Buddhist sites, Jain sites, monasteries. So I had made all these maps, and I used to revise them every day. For 90 days I used to revise them between my prelims and mains, every day 1 hour. If you do this, I can guarantee you that you will memorize all the sites correctly. I still know all the sites. I can still mark all the sites. Now the second question comes that, sir, how did you get all these sites on the map? So there were multiple sources, but the major source that I used was this book, Map Entries History Optional by Rashid Yassin. So this is a book on map entries. I would like to warn all of the aspirants about this book that many sites, at least 50% of the sites in this book are incorrectly marked. So Damabad is not in Maharashtra in this book, it is in Jharkhand. So such as many sites are incorrectly marked. So the good thing is that when you open this book, you get the names of the sites, so that when you Google also the site, you can get the right location. That is what I used to do. So let's say the first map itself. So in the first map itself, I found many mistakes. That in this map, this is not on the right place. So what I did is, I found out this is Atri Ramapakkam. I found out this on Google map, and I marked it rightly. And this is also not on correct place. So I circled it and I marked it rightly where it is. So this I did for all the maps in this. See, every map is incorrect. This book is not good for mapping the site. But the good thing is that you will get the names of the sites. The good thing is that you will get the names of the sites. And then you can Google them, and when you make your own maps, like I did, on this paper, 1 rupee paper, you can pinpoint them rightly. I did the same thing and it worked for me very well. The good thing some people ask that, sir, should we go for self-made maps from other institutes that they provide, like self-study history also has a module on maps. So I would say no. The reason being that when you mark the sites with your fingers, with your mind, it gets set and stuck in your mind. So when I mark Atri Ramapakkam on the actual map, I knew that Atri Ramapakkam is here because I am marking it with my own hand. But when you read it from a paper, it might take some time to settle down in your mind. So I would suggest that you make your own mind maps and have some blank maps also, so that you can practice on that. So you can ask your friend. I used to ask my sisters to mark any 4-5 sites, and then I would identify which sites are these. I would used to do this every day for 10 to 15 minutes. Every day 5-6 sites I used to find. My sister used to make some blank maps and mark some sites on it, and then I would find that this is this site, this is this site, this is this site. So this is how you make the maps. Now the third question arises in the map is that, sir, okay, fine, we can make the map and we can have the sites located. But the question is, how will we write about the maps? Because the map question, it comes for 50 marks and each site is for 2.5 marks. So you also need to write in 30 words about the site, right? That is also important. See, this book is actually not good for marking the maps, but this book is actually very good to know about the sites. Every information given in this book about the sites is correct. So let's take this random page. This is a megalithic map. So there are some sites on this book: Naikund, Mahurjhari, Brahmagiri, and in pointers some information about the sites are given. So what I used to do is, after memorizing all the maps, all the sites in the maps, I would read and study these pointers about that site, and that this is how I covered my map portion. I would also like to share one of the information that I got from my own observation of analyzing previous 40 years of papers. So this is the question paper of this year that I attempted. See, my name is also here. This was my question paper of paper 1 history option. So what I observe is that when UPSC is giving you the map, firstly UPSC always add 2 or 3 new sites. This year they asked us to find out an IV site, which is not asked ever in last 35 years or 40 years. And this year also they marked some of the, they also asked coin hole, which is not asked. So 2 to 3 sites. Last year what they did is they asked a masjid, a mosque, Chiraman Juma Mosque in Kerala. So what I observed is that UPSC is always adding some new sites, and there is nothing much that you can do about it except being prepared what is already asked in the previous years. So 1-2 sites is okay if you don't know. I also did not know, many people don't know, Shruti also did not know, but what you know, that should be on your fingertips, right? Second thing that I observed is that when UPSC is asking a site, like in this question paper, 15th number of site, I wish I could show this question paper a little more clearly. This is the question paper and this is the site, 15th number of site. This site is actually asked as a Buddhist site. So this site is actually asked as a Buddhist site, but in reality this is a Neolithic site as well. This is also an inscriptional site, and this is also an agricultural site. So you can see that even if one site has many different characteristics, it is not guaranteed that it will be asked the way it is, right? So it was asked as a Buddhist site, and the same was true for site number 7, I guess. Yeah. So site number 7, it is asked that site number 7 is an inscriptional site. Now you can see site number 7 here, it's near B3. It's an inscription site. So I thought it's B3 and I marked B3, but it came out that this site is Sohagura. Sohagura, because Sohagura also has one Ashokan inscription, which I knew that it is there, but it was not an important inscription. So Sohagura is basically a Neolithic site. So it should have been asked as a Neolithic site. But what did they ask? They asked that this is a inscription site. So this is one thing that I observed, that one site can be asked in different ways. So what you need to do is, you need to memorize the location of the site. Characteristics is also important, but once you are done with memorizing all the sites, I recommend you that try to think, can there be any more sites on the same place but having different elements? And if there are, then that is the answer. I hope I am making some sense here, because it's little typical to solve this map. Also my map strategy was that during the paper, that the moment I get the paper at 9 AM, my strategy was that within 5 minutes I will divide the map in my actual answer sheet into grids, like I used to do. I practiced a lot to divide the map into grids, and then I will mark each site in 1 minute. So at max it should take me half an hour, 30 minutes to complete the map question, and that I was able to do because I practiced around 20 to 25 maps before the actual paper. So I took some map questions from market and I made a PDF file of it, and then I answered all of the questions. I used to solve one map every week, 2 maps every week. So that helped me a lot. So this is all about maps. The third section that I want to devote is is on the structure of answer writing. I got so many questions on how to structure an answer for history option. Just give me a second, I need to drink some water. Yeah, so answer writing. See, I have already mentioned that history is not about facts, logics. It is about change and continuity across time and space. So that matters most. One more thing is there, that in history, historiography is like the heart and soul of history. Without historian's perspective, you cannot write an answer. And it goes especially for ancient and medieval Indian history as well as modern Indian history, but more specifically for paper 1. You cannot write about anything in the topic, in the subject ancient and medieval, without writing at least 2 to 3 authors in the question answer, in the solution that you are giving. Now, answer should start with an introduction. The introduction must be very short. It must be around 3 lines and at max 4 lines, not more than that. In the introduction, you must introduce your answer, the topic that is given in the question. Then comes the main body. Now, there are different approaches to write the answers. Some people prefer to write paragraphs, like last year's topper of history optional, Rajat Ravindra Ubekar. He used to write answers in paragraphs, but I preferred writing answers in points. It was more convenient to me, and it made a good impression for the examiner as well, because pointers are very interesting to read and easy to read than paragraphs. Now, but when you are writing the points, do make a context, set a context before writing the point. For example, let's say a question comes to me on Mauryan politics and I want to write some points on it. So the first point that I will write will contain only those topics which is related to that context. So I will write about the Mantri Parishad or the Council of Ministers that Ashoka had in that point. In the second point, I will write about the defense system. Defense is also part of administration. In the third point, I will write the financial system, how Sanidhata and Samarthas were there. So this is how I will structure my answer. Remember, in every question and every solution of history optional, there must be a conclusion. Without the conclusion, leave any question, a solution. Even the question is incomplete without the conclusion. So conclusion is very, very crucial. And what should you write in conclusion? You should write positive conclusion. For example, if let's say this is a question that was post-Mauryan age a dark age in the history. So after discussing this everything, economy, polity, culture and everything, you will write in the conclusion that the discussion whether the post-Mauryan age was a dark age or not is an ongoing debate, and we should be more adaptable and open to the new perspectives that are supposed to be given by the historians and the scholars of the subject as a student of history. However, while some aspects like economy was downfalling, some other aspects like culture, religion and etc. were actually boosting and getting promoted. So it cannot be said that it was a dark age in toto, but there were some elements of development as well. So you should write always a balanced answer. Remember and remember, always remember. This is a very important tip I want to give to all history students, not just for history option but every history student, that you should not take side of any historian. Even if it is the greatest historian of India, even if it is R.S. Sharma, Irfan Habib, Romila Thapar, you can never take the side of the historian. Because as an administrator, it is not expected from you that you take a side. You have to be neutral. You have to find a middle path of like Buddha. So always try to write a balanced conclusion. Okay, this historian says this, but this also says this, and both are correct in their own way. So what should we do? We should be open to both of the conclusions, and we should try for more evidences so that we understand the topic better. This is a perfect and very balanced answer, conclusion. One more thing, this thing was told to me by one of my professor, Dr. Manisha Chaudhary, who is a very senior faculty at Department of History at University of Delhi. She told me that Lakshay, you should never write that a historian comes from this school. For example, let's say Irfan Habib comes from a Marxist school of history. You should never write that Irfan Habib is a Marxist historian. The reason is that what if the examiner who is checking the question is not from a Marxist school of history, rather he is a conservative historian, he is an orthodox historian, or he is an oriental historian, then he will not like the mentioning of that fact that Mr. Habib comes from that, Professor Habib comes from that school of thought, right? However, if any question is perfectly and purely based on historiography, then you are supposed to write that yes, there is Oriental School of History, there is Modern School of History, Cambridge School of History, Marxist School of History, and Subaltern School of History. You will have to write, but only in those questions which were historical in nature. Let me give you one example. This year's history paper 1, optional paper 1. If you open the paper and open question number 5A, medieval history, first question. So the question is, discuss the different stages of Indian feudalism and analyze its impact on Indian political system. This question is purely based on historiography. You will have to show the debates going on Indian feudalism. It starts with R. Sharma, D.D. Koshambi, then comes B.D. Chattopadhyay, Harman Kulke, then comes other scholars like J.D. Byers, and some other scholars are also there. The Y.V. Subrayellu, who had worked against R. Sharma, who had written, criticized R. Sharma. So some historians are there. N.K. Chaudhary, which have worked on mercantile trade and marine trade. So you will have to write all their theories and their work, and then you have to write the answer. That this school of historian says this school of historian says this. This is one question on historiography. Only in this question you can write the school of history. This is how you use historiography in the question. Right. Now, once you are done with writing an answer, so my approach was that for a 10 marker question I will write the answer in 7 minutes, and for a 15 marker question I will write the answer in 11 minutes. For a 20 marker question I will write the answer in 15 minutes, and I was able to do it. Now, one interesting thing that I want to share with all of you is that, now this is again question paper number 1 of history option. I just showed you the map page. The next page, this starts the actual questions which you are supposed to answer. So in these questions, what I used to do is, the first question you can see, question 2A. Do you agree that the ecological factors influence the flow and ebb of the Harappan civilization? Comment. Now the moment I get the question, I used to write the historian's name before the question. Shirin Ratnagar, F.W. Dales, and all the historians that I could remember. Wheeler, Fairservice, Ranjoy Adhikari, Rikes. So I used to write these historians' name. You can see in another question, analyze the significance of external influence and indigenous development of post-Mauryan art. So immediately I wrote the names of Susan Huntington and J.C. Harley, who have worked on this. Then next question, how would you characterize the nature of Mauryan state on the basis of Kautilya's Arthashastra? Immediately I wrote the name of R.P. Kangle and Professor Thapar, Romila Thapar. So I used to do this for every question. Every question, you see any question, I will do this. Even in paper 2, some of the question, aspirants, they were asking me, sir, is historiography is that important in paper 2? The answer is yes, it is important. Even in paper 2, I used to write the name of historians. See, this is paper 2, modern history, last question. Discuss the major constitutional development of India after 1858 and their impact on society and polity. So I wrote the names of C.R. Das, Chittaranjan Das, and B.R. Tomlinson, who has worked on 1935 Act. Similarly, I used to write the name of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, V.P. Menon, and all. World history, the first question itself on industrial revolution, I immediately wrote the name of Eric Hobsbawm, who have worked on world history. The first industrial revolution that happened. And this question, I wrote the name of Professor A.G.P. Taylor, this question was based on interwar period. So I wrote the name of Professor A.G.P. Taylor, who has worked on interwar period. So yes, the moment I got the questions, my first objective was to write the name of the historian whom I know that has worked on this particular topic. How did I know that they have worked on this particular topic? I actually did a meditation and actually devoted a lot of time to make these. These are my notes of historiography. I have written historian's interpretation on literally most of the topics that are in our syllabus. So I took one topic, type of Mauryan state. I wrote 5-6 historians who have worked on this, and I wrote their major thesis, that what is their point of view, what is their conclusion in 1-2 line. So I used to revise these a lot. So this is world history, and I have shared all this historiography on my Telegram channel. If you scroll up, you will find 3 historiographies: ancient India historiography, modern India historiography, and world historiography. Medieval Indian historiography, unfortunately I did not make historiography notes since I really loved medieval India. All of it is in my mind and I did not need to go to write them and revise them. So I have made them. You can find this historiography from my Telegram channel. The link of the channel is attached in the description of this video. So this is about answer writing. One more thing I wanted to discuss is that, so the moment I used to get the question paper, first thing was that I used to write the name of the historian who has worked on it. The second thing was that I would underline and circle the keyword of the question. So the first question of modern Indian history was critically analyze. Critically analyze. I immediately encircled this critically analyze. This is the keyword. They are not asking you to evaluate, analyze, or trace, or define, or anything else. They are specifically asking you to critically analyze. So you will have to critically analyze. Critically analyze means what? You will have to find the positive perspective of the topic and the negative perspective of the topic, and then write a balanced conclusion between the positive and negative perspective of the topic. The first question: the introduction of Western education transformed India in unforeseen ways. First I wrote the name of historian like V. Paramila Rao, Professor Vikas Gupta. So I have written all these historians' name right in front of this question. Then I critically, means positive impact of Western education, how it transformed, negative impact of Western education, how it transformed. They are asking this. Now if you write only positive or only negative impacts, examiner will give only half of the marks. Critically analyze means you have to write both the parts, positive and negative. These keywords are very important. Now, similarly, question number 2. Question number 3. How did English utilitarian thinking impact India in the British era? How? They are not asking you to critically analyze. How? How means what were the impacts? How? How did it impact? What happened that they impacted? That is the question. Not what is impacted. Remember, there are two things. Not that you will not write that economy is impacted, politics is impacted, administration is impacted, sustenance is impacted. No, how it is impacted. They are not asking what is impacted, how it is impacted. So we will have to write the policies of East India Company, utilitarian thinking, policies like Jeremy Bentham's thinking, then its policies, J.S. Mill's policy, and so on and so forth. William Bentinck's policy, because he was a utilitarian. How did it impact it? How? Not what did they impact it, how? Okay, so this was the question and this is how you answer this. Now, the next question was that discuss the changing nature of Dalit assertion in India in 20th century. Discuss. Not critically analyze, not how, not what, not analyze, discuss. Discuss means you have to trace that particular thing. They have given you the time period, 20th century. So 1900 till 2000. So that is the 20th century. So you have to trace it across time and across space. That is how you discuss. So what did I do? I discussed from Phule to Kashiram to B.R. Ambedkar Sahab to Dalit Panthers which are working right now, and even contemporary world. I wrote the example of Bhim Army of Chandrasekhar Azad. So I actually discussed them across the time, and while doing it, I also discussed it across the space. What was happening in Bombay, what was happening by the Bhadralok in the Bengal, what was happening in Bombay by Tilak, Jyotiba Phule and everyone else, And what was happening and done by some groups in Madras, such as the self-help groups or the New India groups. So what are done by them? What is done by them? Like C.P. Sundarayallu, he worked a lot on Dalit assertion during the 20th century. Like Periyar, so I mentioned all this, like Narayan Swami. So this is how you identify that what is asked and how to answer this. The answer of the question is within the question. You have to dig it up. Keyword is very important. Critically analyze means positive and negative aspect both. Then in the conclusion, balance both. Discuss means analyze it across time and space. Trace also means the same thing. How means how, what consequences. What means the things that is happening. Why means causes that happen. See the difference. There's a lot of difference. People do not fail and score less in history optional because they don't know the answers. People score less because they are not able to identify the demand of the question and address that demand. So once you identify the demand, you have to write the answer accordingly. Now this last question of world history. Do you think that the United Nations organization has played a significant role in resolving international dispute and ensuring peace in the world? So what I did is that I divided this question in two parts. During the Cold War period and after the Cold War period. And it was asked my opinion. Do you think? The question is, do you think? So after discussing the positive works that has done by UN peacekeeping agencies and the negative works means the unsuccessful task that is done by the UN peacekeeping agencies, I will never take the side that UN is redundant. Why? Because you are a administrator. You are going to become a part of UN itself someday. So you can't take anti-institutional stance. You will always say that okay, UN has done so UN has done nothing in the Arab Springs, or UN is not able to control the power of United States in affecting all other small countries, especially in Middle East and Africa. But there are better avenues that we can resolve it. So UN must work in accommodation of all the countries by addressing their problems. So this is how you write the answers. I think I have answered almost all question how to structure an answer. Now I take some questions. I have actually so many questions that I marked. People ask me so many questions on Telegram, Instagram and all other sites. I'll try to answer all these questions one by one in the next section, that is the last sections of this video. So now I'll be answering all these questions that I have been receiving over the past few weeks from different sources, Instagram, Telegram and whatnot. So I'll answer these questions one by one. So time taken for history option. It took me around 3.5 months to complete the history option. And I actually made my notes before the prelims, between the gap when the prelims was postponed for the first time in the corona. So I got 3-month window. So I only studied history. Every day I used to study history for 8 to 9 hours, and I made notes and I revised them then. So it took me around 3.5 months. Self-study history material send करें. So I can't send self-study history material because it's a copyright issue. The institute has made the material very with a lot of hard work and dedication. I can't send it. It's illegal also. Sources I have already discussed in the earlier part of this video. Note making revision strategy. So I tell you what, I used to go through the syllabus. The syllabus means the 12 units in the paper 1 and 12 units in paper 2. And subtopics of the syllabus, subtopics of the unit, and after going through those topics, I used to go through the previous year questions related to that topic. Then I would find out the information, dig out the information plus historiography on that topic. Then I would make the notes. So that was my note making strategy. So my note making was very concise and crisp, related to mostly previous year questions or something that I found is very important. I used to make notes only for that particular topic and nothing else. Although I'll share my notes for ancient and medieval India very soon. South Indian history, 5th to 11 AD, what are the sources? So South Indian history, I think there will be only one question asked from the South Indian history in the ancient, and I prepared my South Indian history from Maharashtra Cinema itself. That was a good book for South Indian history. Plus, I also used this NCRT on art and culture. So it also includes the art and culture of South India. The name of the it's a red cover NCRT of 11th class. The name of the book is the Introduction to Indian Art. So for art and culture, because South Indian history means art and culture generally, and religion. So I used to study that book, and South Indian history was that only. Luckily, no question from South Indian history was asked this year. I'm also not that deeply interested in South Indian history, so I did not prepare it that extensively. Although I have notes, I made the notes from different sources on internet, as well as some other sources which I will share when I share the ancient Indian history notes. It will be a part of those notes only. How to retain this vast syllabus? There is only one way to retain this vast syllabus: revision, revision, and revision. Revision is the key. You will have to revise the syllabus again and again and again and again. Make notes, short notes, try to make them on your own. I would not suggest you to study the notes of the toppers, because toppers' notes are made from their perspective. They are comfortable making those notes. Does not mean that you will be comfortable in studying those notes. So I suggest that you make your own notes and study and study. That's how you retain the subject. How to read Plassey to Partition? Should make notes. So I bought Plassey to Partition, but it's still in my rack untouched. I did not read this book because it's a very bulky book by Shekhar Bandyopadhyay, and Waziram and Ravi's yellow book is very good. I found many different perspectives from historians in that book. So GS, it was meant to be GS for GS1, but luckily it covers the modern Indian history part of history optional as well. Is spectrum used in modern optional? I did not use spectrum in modern optional. People, they can use if they are not using Waziram and Ravi's yellow book. I think it's more or less just as I said before also, more or less like the spectrum only. How to start note making? I would suggest that it should start 7-8 months before prelims, and it should end 4-5 months before prelims. Before prelims, you should before 4 months of prelims, you should only devote your time only for prelims and nothing else. And before that, you can start making notes. After prelims, I will not suggest, because after prelims you will not get time. The window between prelims and mains is very small. So I will suggest around 8 months before prelims you can start. How to select topics to prepare? Select those topics which are previous year questions, repetitive topics. They are direct. The history optional paper is direct or indirect repetition of previous year papers, previous year questions. How long it took for first reading? No number of revisions before prelims. I did not revise before prelims. I just said that I made my notes before prelims, but I did not get to revise them because of the time crunch. I gave my first reading after the prelims of the notes that I made. How did I start note making? When did I start note making? I started note making when the prelims get postponed because of COVID. So during that period between July to August, September, August, these 3 months I was making notes only. How to prepare and manage historian doesn't become mind-boggling. No, it does not become mind-boggling. How to prepare and manage historians? I don't understand the question. Prepare means what? Prepare means that you should know the viewpoint of that historian at most, just that. And manage means what? Manage means that you should, if you are not understanding what the historian is saying, what his or her research is saying, then how can you write the answer? History is all about the researches done by these great scholars of history. They know the subject better. They spend a lifetime to make their researches. You are in fact, you are in an easy position, more comfortable position. You just need to write 1 or 2 lines about that person who has devoted his entire life to saying what you are writing in 2 lines. Right? See, you are in better position to manage. They should be asking, how should I manage? to study this subject. You know, you are asking how to manage historians. You should feel pride that you are using the name of the historian. Writing. So I have some questions. Okay, writing. Some questions on writing. Paper solving approach. My paper solving approach was very simple. I was very comfortable in completing my map in first half an hour for paper 1. Then I used to jump on the 5 marker questions, directly 5 marker questions, because they are short, and I would complete 5 questions in half an hour, 35 minutes. And after this I will jump on 15 and 20 marker questions, and this was my approach for paper 1. Paper 2, 5 marker question in first 1 hour. 1 hour, 10 questions must be done. 10 max 1 hour and 10 minutes, not more than that. Then after that I will go to the other questions. So interestingly, my paper 2 of history optional, modern India and world history, it got completed 15 minutes before the time, which is an achievement for me. I never thought that I would be able to complete this paper so early, because it's a lengthy paper and I never did this before. So I was shocked that how did I complete this paper 15 minutes before. It was because of my management of the questions only. I completed first the 10 questions of 10 markers in first 1 hour. I completed them. So that is how, what was my approach. Which test series and when? So I did not take a test series per se, because I did not have money. I come from a very humble family. Now all this home, looks very good now, but this came after the results has came. Earlier we used to live, I did not even have this chair on which I am sitting and this table on which this device is there. So I used to study on floor. I used to sit and study there. This has come after the result. So I did not buy a test series, but I have heard that the self-study history test series is good, and GS score is also fairly enough. And when to start the test series, I would say after the prelims. If you are confident that you are clearing the prelims, then you can start straight away. I waited for the results for the prelims. Although I knew that I will clear the prelims, but still I waited for the results to start answer right. No. I did not take history optional test series. I started for GS after my results were out. But I started answer writing for history optional after my prelims, from the very next day. And I used to write at least one paper every day of history. So 90 papers I wrote for history optional. And so this was my strategy. Now, importance of historiography. Very important. I already mentioned, your answer is as good as nothing if you are not mentioning historians there. History is about the perspectives, interpretation, analysis, and that has been done by the historians and the scholars of the subject. So without the historians' views, historiography, the answer is incomplete. That is what I think. Very important. Words and phrases of test series notes different from an actual paper, how to handle. So when you give a test series, don't expect that the same question will be asked by the UPSC, because UPSC goes through all these tests and they eliminate all these questions which are repetitive. So words are different. I already discussed how to tackle the question in the third part of my video, that the keywords must be the key. Critically analyze, evaluate, how, these are the keys. You should interpret what is asked in the question and answer accordingly, no matter if it is a test series or the actual paper. Did I cover entire syllabus and went for answer writing, or I did simultaneously? So I did it simultaneously. I was covering the syllabus also. No, it differed. For ancient and medieval, I completed the syllabus, then I went for answer writing. But for modern and world, I was doing it simultaneously, completing the syllabus and doing the answer writing. How to integrate answer writing in preparation? Integrate answer writing in preparation. Answer writing is the most important thing that you can do for preparation. So how to integrate? It's not integration. How to integrate preparation with answer writing? This should be the right question to ask. And the answer to that is that take out 3 hours every day to answer writing, for answer writing. Okay. After the prelims, it's a necessary thing, but before the prelims, before 4 months of the prelims, I suggest you do extensive answer writing, so that your answer writing speed increase and you know how to structure the answer very well. How many historians' views are enough for 15 and 20 markers question? There is not an upper limit, but I would suggest for a 15 marker question, 2 to 3 historians are enough. For a 20 marker question, 3 to 4 historians are enough. Okay. How to choose? Because this is the amount that I used in my questions. How to choose questions for high scoring? There is nothing like that this question will give you more marks or this question will give you less marks. I'll tell you something very interesting. So I told you that I love medieval Indian history. So I thought that it was in my mind that I will attempt more questions from medieval history, 3 questions from medieval, and I'll attempt 2 questions from ancient. Now when the question paper came, I knew more questions from ancient and less questions from medieval. So at the last moment, I changed my strategy and I attempted more question of ancient and less question of medieval. Okay, same thing happened in paper 2. I thought that I will attempt more question in world history and less question in modern history, because I thought that Indian historians which will check this paper, they are very good in the modern history part. So they can cut marks in modern history answer. But then I knew more answers to modern history, so I attempted extra question of modern history and less question for world history. So there is nothing like that you have to attempt from this way or that way. Attempt those questions which you know, that will be more scoring. And see, I got 155 marks in paper 2, despite not attempting world history questions more and attempting modern history questions more. Anyways, next question. Should you use some phrase of historian or start with it? You should never start with a historian's perspective. Start with an introduction that is related to the topic so that the examiner know that you are on the right track of the answering. Then in the main body you can write one phrase of the historian. That is, according to this historian, this historian believes this. According to B.N. Chaudhary, Kanishka was a ruler which was responsible for boost for economic development in post-Mauryan period. According to Radha Champak Lakshmi, the Sangam age is the golden age of South India. Phrases. Never start with historians. Use historians as spices, not as the main ingredient of your dish. Okay? Historians are spices to your answer. So never start with historian. Add the historians in between. My take on uses of historiography in world historians. Some say it is okay to not use historians in world history. My personal view is that no matter if it is world history or modern Indian history or any history, you should always use the scholar's name. And I think there are some historians in world history like Karl Marx, Eric Hobsbawm, Richard Eaton, and many others who have worked extensively on most of the topics. J.F. Richards and Taylor, A.J.P. Taylor. So they have worked extensively on different topics. You can use them on most of the topics, right? So I would say that if you know little bit of the historian's perspective on a topic, even if it is a world history question, I would 100% recommend you to use that historian's name in the question. It will give your question more weightage. Even in contemporary world history, I use the scholar's perspective. There was this question on United Nations. I used Mr. Kofi Annan, who was the General Secretary of United Nations, name and his view, because he was a scholar of the subject, international relations. So I used his view. It's always helpful to quote these scholars. Gives good impression, no matter if it is world history or any other history. Time management for paper. I already told you what was my strategy for time management. Map in first half hour, next half an hour, next 5 questions of 10 marks, then the other questions. Difference between history optional and GS1 in answer writing. Very good question. So the question is how the answer of a GS1 question is different from a history optional question. Very good question. See, when you write a answer of the same, even if it is the same question, when you write the answer in GS1, it is very analytical in its approach. You will have to use examples, facts, figures, and all those things, quotes in that question. It's okay if you don't use historian perspective in a GS1. That's perfectly okay. So that is the perspective of GS1. But when you are writing an answer of history optional, the same question becomes interpretative. Rather than being analytic, it becomes interpretative. So you will have to interpret the topic. What is the interpretation of the topic? because change and continuity is all history is about, right? So you will have to interpret what are the different interpretation of different historians. So now historiography becomes the crucial factor here, but GS1 you don't need that. Even if in history optional you are not using facts and figures, it's okay, but in GS1 you will have to use facts and figures to to back your statement. Like I remember there was this one question from post-Indian independence, modern history, that write down the same question. It was revolving around princely states, how they were integrated to free India. The same question was asked in GS1. I used a lot of facts. This Junagadh state, Hyderabad state, Jammu and Kashmir and Manipur, facts. But the same question when it was asked, it was also asked in history optional, modern India paper, last question. I attempted this question and I wrote about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's views, VP Menon's views, okay, Jawaharlal Nehru's views. Rather than giving facts, I used views. Interpretation. Firstly, you are analyzing in GS1, but here in history option you are analyzing as well as you are interpreting the topic. What are the interpretations? So this is the difference, a very big difference. It is like difference between history optional answer and answer of history honors or history MA history or PhD scholar. So that is the difference. Uses of flowchart, map, and can we leave it without explanation? See, you can use flowchart and map. I myself used one map in megalithic question in ancient India. And flowcharts, I don't think I used flowchart, but map I used, one place. And no, you cannot leave it without explanation. Once you are making a map, at least you have to define what is it showing, right? Or you must actually discuss about it in 2 lines. Can't leave it unattended. Does technical language fetch you more marks as seen in model answer of Balian and GS score test answers? No. I strictly oppose this. I do not think technical answers fetch you more marks. In fact, it is rather opposite. The easier your language is, simpler your language is to understand and read, the more marks you will get. So it's the other way around. My professor always used to tell me, the history professors, that Lakshay always write the answer which is easy to understand. Always use the words which is easy to understand. People know their meaning. They are better to, you will establish a connect between yourself and examiner when he reads or she reads your questions, answers. So the more easy the language, the better it is. Some questions or maps are there. Strategy to identify locations. I have already defined the strategy in second part of the video. How to point sites on the map. I have defined this also. How to memorize. I have defined this also. Sources to prepare descriptions. I have defined this also. The book. Special test on map needed. Yes. You should go and not like you should not buy the test. Everything is available online. Just search on Telegram. You will get some tests on maps. Just take out first few pages which is of map and try to practice that paper, or you go to your friend or your sibling, tell him or her that please make a rough map for me and I'll identify the sites. The more you practice, the better you become. This is one set of question. Second sets of question. Note making from Upinder Singh as it's bulky. I did not make notes from Upinder Singh, and I don't think it's necessary also. If you are doing self-study history and previous year question module, Upinder Singh you can leave, according to me. However, it gives a very good view of history. I have the book with me, but I'm reading it right now, and I really like the book. But the thing is that it's too bulky and it's too time consuming. So if you don't have time, you can skip it. If you have time, you can actually read it. How much notes are not too bulky? What is this question? How much notes are not too bulky? There is no upper threshold. Make that many notes as you are comfortable in. It depends on person to person. I make many notes for ancient India, but very few notes for medieval India. Right? So because I was more comfortable in medieval India, I did not need notes. So that's a personal choice, I would say. How much notes is not too much. the amount in which you are comfortable. How to be consistent in study? What is this question? You should study every day. It's like a habit. It will be very hard initially, but once you study for 1.5 month continuously on scheduled time, it will become a habit. That will become your personality trait. So now, earlier I used to scroll a lot before my preparation started through Facebook or Instagram, and I used to and WhatsApp, and I used to get distracted a lot. But now, after like not using these things for 1 year, now I don't want to use them even when I can use them. So that's the difference. It has to be your habit, and it will be very hard initially, but you have to do religiously, continuously the same thing again and again, and it will become your habit. Do you need to compromise with GS for such a huge optional? No. In fact, it is an additional bonus if you are taking history as an optional. It will cover history part of the GS one as well. Approach of time management and world history, as it is huge. I have already defined my approach for time management. I used to study history after my prelims every day, 4 hours, morning time, 8 am to 12 pm. I used to study only and only history. Then at the evening time, 5 pm to 8 pm, I used to write one question paper of answer of one paper of history. That was my time management between prelims and mains. Before my prelims, I used to make notes, which I have already defined. How to tackle world history? I focused majorly 90% for world history, 99% for world history. I focused on the previous year question module of self-study history. If you do that module, that is with solution, it's around 250-300 pages. If you do that module, just that, I think that's enough for world history. But the thing is, people are not able to do that. Optional plus pre-notes, separate or together? Separate. Optional is different from prelims. Optional is analytical, prelims is objective. Optional is subjective, prelims is prelims is objective. My notes. I'll share my notes on my Telegram channel. I am sharing the link of my Telegram channel and my Instagram account and my blog with this video. You can go through all three of them, and you can get in connect with me if you have any doubts. Lack of material, especially for Latin America, Australia, Dutch, etc. How to prepare? Leave these topics. Why there is lack of material? Because these are not important topics. So yeah, questions that they do come from Latin America and Australia and Dutch, but I have observed one thing in last 40 years. One question is coming from Australia, that how Australia attained its independence. This is the only question that has been asked. On Latin America, there was only one question on Simon Bolivar. How Simon Bolivar was able to attain independence for Latin America. Only one question was asked on Dutch, that what was the farming system or revenue system in Dutch East India. So that was the three questions. If you prepare the solutions of these three questions, that's more than enough. You can leave all other topics. Just prepare these three questions, and these topics are done, because they are not that important. Even if you want to do these three questions, they are most important topics from these: Australia, Latin America, and Dutch, which I just mentioned. Prepare these questions. You will get it in self-study history previous year question module, the solution of them. How to cover historian's view? My notes. I have shared my historiography notes on my Telegram channel. Although it does not have medieval historiography, but let me tell you one thing, that when I will share medieval history notes that I made for history optional, medieval history notes also contain a lot of historiography in it. So you can refer those notes for medieval historiography. Okay? I think that will be enough. Self-study history review. It's a very good source for history optional preparation. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. For everything. It's very good. Previous year question, test series, maps, it's very good. I think the best source of history optional preparation is self-study history. But even a better source would be that you yourself prepare for history optional from different sources and make your own notes, revise those notes, and prepare for the optional. which Satish Chandra R.S. Sharma to be read? The NCERT or the book? The NCERT, old NCERT, and the book is also the same. There is no difference. I just showed you the books. Okay, you can refer to the first section of this talk, and there are the books that I have showed also with the cover. You can buy those books of Satish Chandra and R.S. Sharma and Bipin Chandra. How many years of previous year questions? As many as you can. 35 years is the minimum limit that I would suggest. My test copies. I have already shared my test copies. I did not give formal tests. I used to write answers and I used to get them evaluated, some of them evaluated by one of my professors of history, Dr. Manisha Chaudhary, and she will give me some feedback. She will not give me marks but feedback that how can I improve my answer writing. And I have uploaded one test of each ancient, medieval, modern and world on my Telegram channel. You can go there and scroll up, you will find them. Which test series? I have already told you that self-study history is a good test series. Role of historiography in travelers, very important role, I have already told you. Do you need to cover deeply? No, you don't need to cover historiography or travelers deeply. You just need to know that this historian is of this view on this topic, just that. Means 2 lines are enough. Okay, don't need to go into deep because that's a altogether different domain. You are not doing PhD in history. You are not sitting for a scholar exam. It's an optional paper. Treat it lightly, and at the end of the day you will get limited space in the answer sheet. For 15 mark question you will get 3 pages, for 10 mark question you will get 2 pages, 20 mark question 4 pages, and you will have to write a lot in those 2-3 pages. So no, you don't have to go deeply. I actually discourage this practice that you should not go too deeply in one topic. You should know the topic but not too deeply. Do you need to justify your answer with sources, evidence? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Without sources and evidence, how can you say that this happened? You are a student of history. You were not alive back then. You were not alive when Harappa was there. You are alive right now. You have to mention the sources that Kalibangan we have excavated this from Kalibangan. Even in, I will say in medieval Indian history, you will have to refer the sources that Aini Akbari says that, Ejaz-e-Khusrawi says that, Miftah-ul-Fuzala says that, Khazai-ul-Futu says that, Tariq-e-Firozshahi says that. So you have to write the sources, yes. Without that, answer is incomplete. Either you write the source or you write the author. और if it is both, then it is like सोने पे सुहागा, बहुत बढ़िया. दोनों होंगे तो बढ़िया ही बात, best. How to improve answer writing? By doing more and more answer writing. Structure of an answer, I have already discussed in the third part of my video. Can you write the view of historian if you don't remember the name? No. You can write the view of historian if you remember the name. Name is very important for the historian. How can you say that Mrs. Romila Thapar is saying that Mauryan Empire was not a centralized empire? But you have to mention the name that Mrs. Romila Thapar is of this view. If you just write that Mauryan Empire is not a centralized empire, it means you are writing that statement on your own behalf, not by the name of Miss Romila Thapar. So you will have to definitely write the name of the historian. You can write the view and you can write the name of any historian, but name of historian is very important. What not to be do in the answers? Don't just keep on writing and writing and writing on that same topic. Try to write in multiple dimensions and try to extract the question, what question asks you. Like it's the keyword that I told you, that's the keyword which will tell you that this should be answered in the question. That is how you should answer. Not that you should not do. That not write too much. Write in within word limit and try to use maps wherever possible. Try to give facts. Try to give evidences, author's name as much as you can. The more the merrier. Okay. Is test evaluation necessary or feedback enough? Both are good. If you are getting evaluated, then good. If you are getting feedback, then good. I was not getting evaluated, I was getting feedbacks from my professor, but it was good for me. Feedback is also valuable and evaluation is also valuable. How to handle question not given in detail in sources. For example, there was a question on Upanishadic principle this year. Very good question. The question says that what if the question comes which is not given in detail in sources? So when the such question comes, try to relate it with the sources that is with you. So I am sure that if this question on Upanishadic principle came, everyone knew what are Upanishads and everyone knew what are the principles of Upanishad. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is written in Maha Upanishad, Tena Tektena Bhujjita, Tattvamasi is written in Chandogya Upanishad. So you can actually write down that this is written in this Upanishad, this is written in this Upanishad. And what you are doing, you are actually exposing the Upanishadic principles. They are the epitome of Vedas, and then you have to conclude how they are epitome of Vedas. You will have to compare it with the other parts of the Vedas, the other hymns, Brahmana, Aryanka, Samhita, and then you have to make an argument that the Upanishadic principles, they are actually not religious in its nature, but knowledgeable in its nature. It's a way of life. So it's the epitome of knowledge. You can actually make a good answer by using your common sense. By knowing just little bit things about the topic. You don't need to know everything from the sources. Sometimes the source does not tell you everything. In that situation, you will have to use your own mind also. That what can be the right answer to this? What can be the perfect answer to this? How to make answers unique? By writing more and more historians and structuring it in point-wise manner. Can you use different historians in one answer? Absolutely yes. Here goes the second part of the questions. I have two more parts. Next question, management of options with GES. So I already told that I used to study for GS for 3 hours and then not GS, optional for 3 hours in the morning, 3-4 hours, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Then 1 hour break, then GS. Then in the evening again the optional. So half I divided. I had this in my mind that I have to score 300 marks in my optional. So I devoted half the time to my optional and half the time to my GS. Unconventional sources that I used. What were the unconventional sources that I used in my questions? I used internet a lot. Internet. So I used to get a different perspective of different things on it from internet, like Vienna Convention, how did it happen, which all were parts of this convention. This was one in unconventional source. Second unconventional source was my MA history notes. I used them in some of the questions, especially in modern Indian history. One source, I already said that for modern Indian history, I prepared from Vajiram and Ravi's yellow book, which was made for GS, but not for optional. But it was very good for optional. It's an unconventional source. Is Manikant sir's, Balyan sir's, Rao's notes good? See, I have never read Manikant sir's, Balyan sir's or Rao sir's notes, but I have been in touch with many students who take coaching from there and many toppers as well who have taken coaching from there, and I have not received very good comments and very good feedbacks from them. So based on their feedback, secondary source I am, based on my secondary experiences, I would say they are not good. I would still say, even if I don't know these people and their notes, I will still say the notes that you will make from sources with your hands, they are the best notes. Any day they are the best notes because you are making them. Should you enroll in MA history? No, no need. No need. Are toppers notes helpful? Yes, very much. I remember I used Mr. Vikram Grewal sir's notes. Thanks to him, I am very grateful to him that I made my own notes because I was inspired from his note making, and he gave me very much inspiration in different things also. Like he also opted for Indian Foreign Services. I also opted for Indian Foreign Services as my first and only preference. So yes, so I took help from him and it is very helpful. Yes, including my notes, they will be helpful. I believe they will be very helpful. Should you take coaching? No. Strictly a no. Very big no. History optional does not need coaching. If I can score 291 without coaching, anyone can. Simple. The thing is that you should work hard and religiously and be very honest with your preparation. Reliability of PYQ of self-study history. Quality of their answer. Should they be written directly? I would say yes. You can use directly the answers of PYQ module of self-study history. They are very nicely written and very nicely structured. I remember many a times I wrote in my actual paper I wrote the direct answers which I memorized from self-study history modules of previous year question. I would say that is the best compilation of previous year question for history optional you will ever found. Very nicely made. Salute to the person who have done so much hard work in making that thing. Schedule for revision. I already shared my schedule with you. Sources for previous year question. I already shared that my sources were self-study history and the previous year papers itself. Can you use self-study history material in notes? Yes, you can, certainly. Can you rely more on world history for 3 questions and 2 questions for modern India? Means you are asking that should you answer more questions from section A or section B? I already answered this as well, that it does not matter from which you are answering, just answer which you know. I changed my strategy in both the papers at the last moment in the paper. I thought to attempt world history more and modern India less. Section B more, section B less. But then I thought, no, I know section A better. So I attempted section A better, more. So it's all about what you know. Go with that. There is nothing that you should not attempt modern Indian history. I scored 155 marks by attempting 3 questions from modern and 2 questions from world. Ideal answer for 50 mark and 20 mark question. 50 mark question, 250 words. 20 mark question, 300 words. That's the best ideal optimum word limit that I would suggest. Structure will remain the same: introduction, main body in points, and with some historiography and some facts, analytical, your own perspective, and then the conclusion, which should be your own view on the topic, which should be a balanced conclusion that I have already discussed with you. Should you join GS score test series or self-study or both? I think self-study is better in terms of test series question quality. Portions of facts, because I have also got the same feedback that self-study history is better than GS score. Does not mean that GS score is not good. I am saying comparatively self-study history is better. Portions of fact in 10, 15 and 20 markers. How much fact will be there? 1 line at max. It should be like sprinkle on the answer. If you are writing one statement, you can write 1 or 2 words. For example, this fact. Next statement, for example, this fact. So fact should be used along with the interpretation of historiography or the historian's view, right? You should substantiate the historian's view by giving the facts, okay? And you should give facts only in 1 line, 1 sentence at a time. Is historiography necessary in 10 markers? Depends on the question. If the question is entirely based on historiography, like the Indian feudalism question, it was entirely based on historiography, then yes, historiography is must. But generally also, I think 1 or 2 historians is very good, even in 10 marker question. If you know, I would suggest you write the names. But there can be some questions which are totally fact based. Like there was this question in medieval India, I just remembered, that write about the different genre of Persian literature. What is it? Identify different categories of Persian literature which emerged during the Delhi Sultanate. So this is a fact based question. So you don't need to write historiography in this. Just need to know the genres. I knew this answer. I wrote at least 7-8 genres that I knew. Tariq, Insha, and many other genres of Persian literature in Delhi Sultanate with examples. So a lot of facts I used. How to do brainstorming? I don't think you will get that much time in actual paper that you brainstorm. It's such a lengthy paper that you will not get time to think. You will just have to write and write. Your pen must not, lift up from the paper. Otherwise, the paper will, you will leave the paper. So there is not much time. You should practice answer writing, and answer writing will be the brainstorming for you in the actual exam. Because when you write answers, then the things will stuck in your mind. How to tackle new questions, surprises. Leave the new questions, why to attempt. You always have the option. If it is in the compulsory sections, like this Persian literature genre categories, it was a new question. I would suggest that you write the generic points that you know. So Persian literature, you can write at least 2-3 examples like Ejaz Khusrowi, Khusro's any work, or Dastane Mohammad Jangi, or Ejaz Arslani, or Tariq Firoz Shahi. Barney wrote a lot of Persian literature, so you can mention a lot of Persian literature there. Whatever you know, you can write. That's how you handle. At least you will get 1-2 marks. Not if you not get 5, 6, 7 marks, you will get 1-2 marks now. Try to get as many marks as. If you don't know the answer, then anyone in the exam room don't know the answer. Think it like that. If that is a surprise for you, it's a surprise for everyone. So be ready for surprises, and don't get disheartened or scared by the surprises. How to use current affair? No need to use current affair. History optional, no need to use current affair. If it is a question of contemporary India, like Dalit movement, something like that, then you can use the current affair that Bhim army is working and all. But otherwise, there is no need to use current affair. I think there will be only one question, which is post-independence, in which you will need to use current affair. Otherwise, not. Can you quote new authors like Sitaram Goyal ji, J. Sain Deepak? Obviously you can. Obviously, I would actually suggest you to quote new authors, because they are the new school of historiography, and they are like the recent viewpoints. So it's a good practice if you are quoting new authors. I also quoted V. Paramila Rao, who is a professor at JNU. I quoted Dr. V.K. Jain in one of my questions. I wrote Dr. V.K. Jain's name 4-5 places in one question, 20 mark question on megalithic period. He's a contemporary historian. He is still alive. So yeah, you are free to use modern contemporary historians. Statement based question in world history should learn the person's name. So when the statement is given, let's say Abraham Lincoln has said that critical analysis, should you know the person's name? No. The question is not, they are not asking you who said this statement. They are asking why this statement is said, what does it signify and all. So your answer should include that part only. Okay. Where was I? Here. How to write conclusion. I have already discussed it, that conclusion must be balanced. You should not support any historian, be it R.S. Sharma, Romila Thapar, or any your favorite historian whom you love. Should never support any historian. Rather, you should write that okay, this historian says this, but there are some historians who also says that. So we should always be open to the new perspectives, because history is always about the new interpretation that is coming. Okay, history is an endless topic. So we should always keep in mind that we should be open to new ideas and new views. So always write a balanced opinion that this is also correct, this is also correct. Let's explore more based on the evidence. Key factors to keep in mind for answer writing. Structuring your answer, not to get away from what is the demand from the question. So always write what is asked in the question. I already told about the keyword, how to analyze the keyword. And always remember to quote some historians. Historiography is the most important crucial factor while answer writing. Do you need to put quotes? Not necessarily, but if you are putting quotes, it always is a good thing. I remember I used Jawaharlal Nehru's quotes 2-3 places in modern Indian answers. So yeah, it's a good thing, I think. How to handle different questions. Difficult questions. How to handle difficult questions. Write generic answers. That's the best you can do. So there was this question on Lodi nobility, which not most of the people knew. So what you can write is what you know, that Sikandar Lodi's period is very orthodox in terms of religion. So yes, the Muslims, especially the Muslims of Uzbeks and all, they were Afghans, they were given privileged position while others were not given. the privilege, like the Turks were not given, the Tajiks were not given that privileged position. And these are the common points, right? The generic points that you can make out on this particular topic. So you write generic points and the things that you know. Key factor to keep in. Okay, we have answered this. Weekly, daily, or full test. Which one is best? I would say you should write a test, full test. This is a full test. Okay, full test, because full test simulation is always the actual simulation of the exam. Although first you should start with, at the initial level you should start with sectional test. One test for ancient, one test for medieval, one test for modern, one test for world. Then once you are done with one test of each, then you should give full tests. That is what I would suggest. How to prepare interview questions in history? What is there to prepare in history? When you clear the mains and you are sitting in the interview, you already know a lot of things in history option. That I can guarantee. You need not to prepare anything. Just be honest. If you know the answer, you tell them. If you don't know the answer, just say, sorry sir, I do not know the answer, but I will study about it. Okay. This is how you answer the history related question. Be honest. Honesty is the key. Okay. And if the question is based on historian's perspective, like I was asked that is liberalism dying today in world as a history student. So liberalism, there are many scholars who have worked on liberalism. So always try to quote some incidences and some historians that no, and then give your conclusion. No sir, the liberalism is not dying. Actually, it's opposite in the interview. You give your conclusion first in the interview, then you explain. In the mains you explain, then you give the conclusion. This is how you answer in history, answer an history question in interview. First say, no sir, I don't think liberalism is dying. I think because Mr. This has said this, and we have this example of this and this. Supreme Court is also saying this, so I don't think liberalism is dying. How is history graduation different from history option? Very different, very different. History graduation will boost you and will groom you as a student of history, as a scholar of history who wants to do MA and PhD in history. So your perspective will be very analytical as well as very less factual. You will study lots of historians' perspective in history graduation and MA history. But in history optional, historian's perspective, although it's very important, like I said previously, they are used just as the spices in the main course. Just the spices. The main course is the structure of the answer, the facts, and the interpretation of the question. So it's more interpretative. And then you will have to write your own views also. This is the difference between history graduation question and the question of history optional. Is not having history background a problem? Not at all. Not at all. Absolutely not. I don't have a history background. I did my MA and I prepared. By the time I was giving my mains, I was in my third semester of MA. So, and it did not. Although it did help me in my preparation, it was not the main factor for me to score good in history option. The main factor was my engineering background. I was able to look at the things from a science perspective, practical perspective, engineer's perspective, and analyze it from the same perspective. Now the last page I have for the question is, and I have little less questions on this. Syllabus is vast, so how to know how much to study and when we are done with the subject or the topic. See, you should study the important topics, and important topics are previous year question topics. Okay. That is how you know how much to study. And when will you know that you are done with the topic? When you are writing good answers. When you are confident that you can write an answer on this topic. Then you are done with the topic. Simple. Is it worthwhile to devote equal time to world history as you can attempt only 2 as well? It is definitely worthwhile. Who says that you have to attempt 2 questions? Those 2 questions contain, even if you are attempting, let's say, 2 questions. So those two questions are of 100 marks. And even in that 2 questions, 1 question is compulsory, 50 mark question. 5 questions of 10 marks. So yes, world history is very crucial. Very crucial. You should equally devote your time to world history and modern history. Nothing is less. All 4 are equal. You are not doing GS paper. It's an history optional paper. All four parts, ancient, medieval, modern and world, equally important. So many dates, how to tackle? History is not about dates and facts, man. History is about continuity and change. You don't know the dates, not a problem. You know what is happening because of those incidences, that is good. What are the causes and what are the consequences? Read between the words and dates, not the words and dates. That is history. History is not facts. People who think that history is facts are not aware of the beauty of this subject. It's not the facts, it's the interpretation of the facts. So even if you are not writing dates, perfectly okay. If you don't write that government of India came in 1935, okay. That's a prelim question, not a history optional question. Is one board enough for each section? Is one book enough? One book enough for each section? If that one book, that depends on which book it is, right? So I don't think I am in a position to answer this. I have already shared my book list and my resources. I think they were enough for me. You can get out the answer of this question from that. Now I have a couple questions by the students on my own experience. My experience in taking history option. Why I chose history optional being an engineering student? Very personal question. Since my childhood, I was very fascinated with this subject. I loved this subject. I always wanted to study this subject. Even in engineering, I was deeply in love with history. I used to study history from internet and all, world wars and all. So I had in my mind that if I have to do civil services, I'll take the subject that I am interested in, and then I chose history. That is how I chose history. Another reason was that since my first preference is IFS, foreign services, world history is a very important part of foreign services. You need to know about different countries' past, their culture, economy, and politics, and that came with the history option to me. Have I taken coaching? No, I have not taken coaching for history optional or GS, anything. I took only mains test series for GS and no test series for history option. And then I gave some mock interviews at different coaching institutes, but no coaching I have taken. Followed YouTube classes? No, I have not followed YouTube classes. Extracurriculars that benefited. Writing benefited me a lot. I have always been an ardent reader and writer, and writing benefited me a lot in writing and making the language of a history optional answer. So that helped me a lot. Revisions before prelims. No, I don't think that's necessary, but note making before prelims is necessary. But if you have time, you can revise also. Good, always good. How to fetch marks being non-history person? How to fetch marks being non-history person? You should ask how to fetch marks taking history as an option. I have already defined extensively how to fetch marks. Okay, if you have watched through this video, I have discussed everything on this paper that I know and I want to share with you. I hope that will help. Now last question. How did I manage my post-graduation in Delhi University with UPSC, and how to clear Net Jrf? See, I was lucky that I got admitted in DU when it was Corona. So 3 of my 4 semesters in post-graduation, they were online. So I was able to manage. And you can also manage because there is no compulsion of attendance in Delhi University for post-graduation. So I used to take only those subjects in which the teachers were very easy. They are not like, they don't wanted me to take the classes. They were not very strict about attending the classes. So I took those subjects. You can do that. Second thing, you should always commit yourself to studying for UPSC first and then for the PG. I did that. That is how I managed. And the third thing is that you should always make room for the PG preparation also, right? So we'll have to study some readings in PG for getting the degree and for clearing the exams. So you should take out 1 or 2 hours every day for PG as well. What I did was, my classmates were very good and they were very cooperative. They used to make notes for me. I was also making notes for them when I was getting some time. But they helped me a lot in my actual papers. So they used to send me the solutions. I used to just copy the solution and write the answers. So you can make some friends in the class who will help you. I made many good friends and they helped me a lot. Thank you so much everyone who is listening, and I know that you are listening. Ayushi, Sachin, Santosh, Harshita, and all these people, they helped me a lot. Shivanshu. So they helped me a lot during my history. Tanya, Chavi, Divya, they all helped me a lot. They were my classmates and batchmates in my history MA. Second question, how to clear Net Jrf? By studying. I cleared Net Jrf in my first attempt, and I used my history optional notes only to clear Net Jrf. I'll be sharing my notes for ancient and medieval soon on my Telegram channel. You can use those notes, and they will be, I think, enough and sufficient to clear Net Jrf for history, ancient and medieval syllabus. That's that. Not for modern. For modern, I use Vajiram and Ravi's GS Modern History book. So that is all for this session. I think it's a long session. It's around 2 hours. So I hope that I have answered all of the queries that you have, and it will help you. Since I was also a student of history optional, I did not have many sources at YouTube or internet. Again, I will wish all the very best for all the people who are taking history as an optional. I hope I am able to help you. Even if there is still some questions, my throat pains little bit. So even if there are still some questions, you can send them to me on my Instagram, lakshayanand.ifs, LAKSHAY.ifs. You can text me there. I will definitely reply back when I get free time. And this is only for the history option. Please do not ask me any other irrelevant questions there. Second thing, I'll be making a blog on which I'll be posting some stuff, my notes and everything, so that those things are consolidated and gathered at one place. So the link of the blog will be in this video description. The link of my Instagram is also in this video description, and the link of my Telegram channel on which I upload everything is also in this video description. So you can join my Telegram channel as well. Again, all the very best, and I hope that who is watching this video, you clear this exam. Even if you don't clear this exam, you get what you want in the life and you become successful. You get the preferred choice that you want, like I got foreign services. All the very best. Study dedicatedly, and previous year question I would again say that are very important for history option. Never miss the previous year questions. Thank you so much.